Abortion happens every day. Millions of people around the world have an abortion each year, but the majority of those people will never talk about their abortion experiences. What if millions of people broke their silence and told the truth about their lives and their choices? This is Melissa Madera in Montreal, Canada, and you're listening to the Abortion Diary podcast. These are the stories we share.
I had my abortion in 2013, and that was about a year after I graduated. So I did all the things that you're supposed to do. I went to uni, and then I did a master's, and then I was working in a bar, and I was just applying for more interesting jobs. Obviously I knew that I didn't want to work in a bar forever, and I met a guy who was also working in the bar, and he became my boyfriend, and we were dating for about 8 months, but we were never in love, we broke up, but on good terms. I think by 8 months time you'd know if you were falling in love or if it was going to be something serious, and it wasn't, and we were okay, we're just better off as friends, and that was fine, because he wasn't really that nice to me. He wasn't awful, but he never made me very happy. But after we broke up, we carried on sleeping together, and only a few times. So this was about a month after we broke up, but we still worked together, we went out in all the same places, so it was inevitable, really. And then I missed a period, and I had a really strong feeling that I was pregnant. My periods were really regular, I just kind of knew it, and I left it about a week after my period was due before doing a test. And I think just before I did the test as well, I have an app on my phone that tracks your periods and says when you're due and stuff, and I'd looked at it, and the date that we'd slept together, I had been ovulating, and I was like, uh-oh. And I just knew, and I did the test in my bathroom at home. I was living with my parents at the time, and surprise, surprise, it came up as positive. And obviously it was a massive shock. I didn't really know how to deal with it, but there wasn't an obvious answer to me. If anybody had asked me, I wouldn't have really said that I was pro-choice, because I've always wanted children, and I guess that was just the beginning of the massive wave of emotions that came after finding out that I was pregnant. It wasn't I was 16, I was still at school, I was irresponsible, I hadn't finished my studies. I was a 24-year-old adult, and I felt I didn't really have an excuse for having an abortion. And I know and agree with loads of women's rights campaigns that are it's a woman's body to do what she likes, but I just didn't feel like that. I had a real maternal instinct, actually, that it just felt entirely wrong to me, and it wasn't an obvious decision to me to have an abortion, and I didn't even think twice about telling my mum, and I think this is one of the parts that was hardest for me, was her reaction, because I'd expected her to be so much more understanding. My mum's a teacher, She's had loads of students in secondary school that had fallen pregnant. She's really patient, she's really kind and understanding, and I just wasn't expecting the reaction that I got. So when I told her, and she was so harsh, like, okay, well, we can obviously help you find a place to live and that kind of thing, which I really wasn't expecting. It just all sort of descended into turmoil, like, for me. Like, I've always had a really close relationship with my parents. They live in like a massive 5-bedroom house. It's not like they didn't have space for like an extra person. And yeah, I took it really, really hard. And also then my mum told my dad, and I really didn't expect her to, and I just got home from work like the next day, and just as I was walking past the living room, like, he was sitting in there, and he just said, like, your mum tells me you're pregnant. And I was really obviously shocked. Like, I just walked in the front door and I didn't think she would say anything. And I was like, yes. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I need to think about it. And the way he dealt with it was like, well, obviously there's nothing to think about. Like, you need to have an abortion. And it was just so difficult to hear that I just felt so alone, like I didn't have any support. And, you know, I really needed it from them. Like, even if that had been the decision that I wanted to make, I needed that decision to be mine, not from other people. So that was just really shocking. And yeah, I just didn't know what to do. And I had a holiday booked with my friends for like a week later, and I really didn't know if I could go or not, or what I should do. And I phoned up like a clinic in Brighton, and they said they didn't have any appointments until like 2 weeks' time anyway. So I thought, well, I may as well go on the holiday, have some time away, and I can think about it. But I didn't talk to any of my friends that I went on holiday with, because, like, what could they possibly say? Like, at that age, like, yeah, you're an adult, but I don't think anyone who hasn't, like, been through it can sympathise, and everybody has an opinion of what they would or wouldn't do, but it's a decision that is just, it has to be yours. And I didn't feel like I could talk to them about it. Luckily I did have one friend who I knew had an abortion as well, and I did talk to her, and she was like amazing, but her circumstances were very different. Like, she'd had a one-night stand while she was travelling, so there was never any sort of any chance that the father could be involved or anything. So I think her decision was a bit more straightforward, and she was still studying as well. And I did tell the guy who I was sleeping with, and he said to me, like, oh, it's up to you. Like, obviously I'll support you if I can, but I knew that that's really easy for a guy to say. Like, he's not the one that's going to carry the baby, he's not the one that's going to live with the baby, and I knew how much it would hurt me to be let down by him. Like, even if he said, oh, I'd be a part of it, I knew I would always feel frustrated, and that the burden was mine, and yeah, that it was basically an empty promise. And that was completely fulfilled, because the day I went to have it done, he didn't even text me, and like, he didn't even care. And I just remember texting him saying, like, nice to know you care, and he was like, oh, I thought it was this afternoon. Well, it doesn't really make a difference, does it? If it's this day, it's this day. Like, that's the most pathetic excuse I'd ever heard. And that was when I knew, like, he would have been a massive letdown as a father. And he was just a guy that I didn't want to be tied to for the rest of my life. He was a guy that I didn't love. We weren't together when I fell pregnant. So, you know, that would have been a massive, massive commitment. And, yeah, there were a lot of emotions afterwards. Like, I just couldn't forgive myself. I don't think I have. Like, because in my eyes, like, I kind of wasn't brave enough to see it through, and I feel like, yeah, it would have been really, really difficult, of course, but is that a reason to go against maternal instinct and something that you're I'm the one person that could have protected that baby, and I didn't. And in the end, I ran away, not literally from home, but I ran away from the life that I was living because I was so unhappy. So I knew that I had to do something really drastic. I had to get out of the town that I was living in. I had to get away from the job and the people and everything. So I went to Mexico for a year, just because I needed to do something in a way I felt like to make it worthwhile. I felt like if you are going to make this massive, you are sacrificing a life, then like you can't continue living as you have done. Like, so I went and volunteered for a year in a children's home because I felt like I had to sort of like give something back in a way to children that weren't mine, but you know, it was a kind of weird way of trying to make up for it. So I did that, and then while I was away, my sister became pregnant, and I was obviously so happy for her. She was in a long-term, like, stable relationship and everything. That was really amazing. But when I got home from Mexico and my nephew was like 1 month old, it suddenly hit me again. Like, it was really, really difficult because here was a baby that my parents loved, and that was the love that my baby didn't get. And it just felt really unfair that, you know, like, I didn't regret the decision, because if I hadn't had an abortion, you know, I wouldn't have gone to Mexico, I wouldn't have had these amazing experiences, I wouldn't be doing the job that I do today and all those kinds of things. But it really hurt, like, that my baby didn't have that chance. And yeah, it just felt really, really unfair. And I guess just with time, like, and obviously I love my nephew dearly and I'm so happy, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I can't put into words, like, the feelings that I had. I guess it was like guilt and everything, and I don't know, I didn't really talk to people, like, apart from the one friend who had the abortion herself. Like, none of my closest friends even know, because, like, what could they possibly say? If I feel like if they couldn't understand, you know, I would talk to them, and then, like, the problem would still be there. I didn't see how that could actually practically help me. So yeah, it's something that I've, like, really struggled with. And I don't know what I could have done differently or anything, and I think that's why it's kind of hard to accept, because I don't think I made the wrong decision, but yeah, I guess it's just really difficult to forgive yourself if you feel like, yeah, I didn't have a valid reason for doing it apart from selfishness, that I wanted support, like, from my parents, if I was going to be a single parent and they wouldn't give it to me, and I knew I wouldn't have support from the father, and so I guess it just feels like it was kind of cowardly on my part, that if I was a stronger person I would have seen it through anyway. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Do you need a moment before I ask you anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the process of getting the abortion and your experience getting the abortion?
Yeah, so when I oh gosh, I think, you know, when you sort of block things from memory intentionally, I think I kind of don't remember much about this period, but I remember one awful thing that happened, that was when I'd discovered that I couldn't get the appointment in Brighton for a couple of weeks, so I was going to go on the holiday, and I hadn't yet made up my mind completely whether I was going to have an abortion or not. So I went to the supermarket to get some of the multivitamins that are like for pregnant women, and I remember going to the counter and asking something, I can't remember what it was, and I was like crying, and I said, like, I've just found out I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. And I remember she turned to her colleague and said, like, oh, she's just found out she's pregnant, like really loud. And I was so embarrassed and upset, and I was like, you can't do that to people. Like, you're a pharmacist, like, this is private information. And I just remember being mortified, and I just walked straight out the supermarket, and I just found it like really insensitive. And so yeah, I guess I was just really in turmoil, like I didn't know what was the best thing to do, like when I went on holiday and things like that. So I knew I was going to have this appointment, and I think it was like the initial appointment that you have where you have like the ultrasound that finds out how far gone you are and things. And the guy I had been with came with me to that appointment, and I just remember sitting in the room, like the lady was really, really nice, but like I was crying the whole time, and she said, like, are you sure this is what you want? And I just said, like, no, I don't think so, but I can't leave it any longer, because obviously the longer I left it, the more upset I was getting, that it felt like a more inhumane thing to do. So then like I did make the appointment, and I don't know what it's called, but where you just like take one tablet and then have another tablet like a day later or something. And I think again they didn't have any appointments for like another week, and the second one, again I like can't remember how it came about, but I think I didn't want the guy to come with me, but I needed someone to come because you can't like drive after you've had it. So my dad came with me, and it was just the worst thing, because like I think it didn't matter how let down I felt by him. I knew that he loved me, and it was just so upsetting putting him through that. Like, I don't think any father expects to like see their daughter be so upset to go into a room and take that tablet with a nurse. And I just felt awful for him as well. We just didn't really say anything, but I think he knew how hard it was, and he hugged me. But it was just awful. We've just never spoken about it since, like with either of my parents. We just pretend it never happened. I think that's another thing that's made it much harder to deal with, because, you know, I don't want to hurt them by telling them that it hurt me, kind of thing. So, yeah. And I remember people saying at the clinic, like, oh, here's a support line that you can call, but I guess that just was never what I wanted. Like, I didn't want to just sit on the phone to somebody. And I think also I often didn't realise how upset I was. I think it was just more in my behaviour. Like, I kind of I went to Mexico and shut myself off from a lot of things rather than dealing with them. So I think, like, maybe I know I should have sought counselling afterwards, but I guess I didn't know that I would need to. I think I thought, like, it would be okay and just give it time and you'll get over it, kind of thing, but I guess it's just not that kind of thing.
You said you've never talked to your parents about it afterward.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to your sister about it?
No, I think, she was like the first person I told when I found out. And she was obviously as nice as she could be, and she said, you know, obviously I'll support you whatever you want to do, but I think that was just the hardest thing. It's like, it's all very well having people's moral support, but that's very different from having the practical support that you need when you're a single parent. And I think, you know, I have a friend that is a single parent, and I knew how hard it was for her, and, you know, I just didn't feel like I could rely on people in that way. You know, I had a minimum wage job. There was no way I'd be able to get another job for a few years while I was bringing up a small child, especially where I'm from. Like, there just aren't good jobs, full stop, anyway. And I think my sister was worried to tell me that she was pregnant because I think she thought it might upset me, and it didn't upset me at all. Actually, I was so happy, and I still, like, really want children. I love children. I think I'm so happy for other people to have children. It's not like, you know, I feel like, oh, that's something I couldn't have, so you shouldn't have it. Not at all. And I think that's why it took me so much by surprise when I got back and faced the reality as well of, like, loving my nephew dearly. It's not a case that he had the love instead of my baby. Obviously, it's not a finite thing, you know, there's enough love for all the children, but just to see how my parents, their lives revolve around my nephew. They're retired, so everything revolves around him, and just to think that that offer wasn't there when I needed it, just because I wasn't in a relationship with the father, felt really, really unfair. And I'm not saying they're wrong, like, they obviously wanted what was best for me, but I think it's more about the way they dealt with it. Like, they should have just listened, rather than kind of making me feel like I had no choice.
Do you ever think you'll talk to them about it?
No, I don't think so. Again, like, I just don't see the point. Like, I don't see why. Like, I don't feel like it would help anything. You know, in my day-to-day life, it's, you know, I just get on with it. It's not something I think about a lot. It's only when I do think about it that I get upset, so it's easier for me just not to think about it or talk about it. Yeah, I just think they don't understand. That was quite clear when I first told them that they don't understand, so I don't think that will have changed. I mean, I could tell them that I'm upset about it, but it's not going to change anything that happened, so I don't think so.
What was it like to be at home with your parents when you were going through the abortion at home?
Horrific. I think this is part of the reason I went to Mexico, because I just had to get away from... It was like really suffocating and isolating at the same time, because I was with them, but I felt so let down by them. I mean, like, we're still really close now, as if nothing happened. I don't hold anything against them. Like, I completely understand they wanted what they thought was best for me. But no, it was awful, because I just didn't feel like they understood or respected me. You know, they'd made that decision, that was the way it had to be, and I felt like they didn't listen or understand or respect. And yeah, I had to leave. And when I came back from Mexico, I lived with them, and it was fine, and we get on really well. But I think we have quite different ideas about those like kind of big issues. And I think if it happened again, I think they'd have the same reaction. I don't think they would think that they did anything wrong. Well, they didn't do anything wrong, but you know, I don't think they would even handle the situation differently.
I was wondering also about the physical process, because when you take the medication abortion, you're at home and you're bleeding.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was awful. So I took the tablet, and then my dad obviously drove me home, because I lived about like an hour away from where the clinic was, and they'd told me it would be quite painful, so they gave me the strong painkillers. And I remember getting home, and I put on the film The Life of Pi, and like got a blanket on the sofa and was just lying there. And I think I was just sort of like really drowsy, kind of sort of drifting in and out of consciousness of watching the film and sleeping and things. And so I don't really like remember much about it, but I remember my mum coming in, and I think I maybe like shouted at her or something, because the next day she pulled me up on it, like, you were really rude to me. And I remember being like, well, I don't really remember. I wasn't really aware of what was going on at that time. And then I was like bleeding for quite a while afterwards, maybe even like a couple of months. And then a very strange thing happened. Like, when I went to Mexico, I didn't have periods for the whole year. But I had normal periods after the bleeding for maybe like 3 months. And then when I went away, I didn't have any. And then as soon as I got back to the UK, they started again. It was very strange. Yeah, I don't know why. I think, I don't know. I feel like I'm quite in tune with my body, and I think it kind of knew that I was like away from home, and like I got ill quite a lot that year and things. Like, it was obviously just a very different environment, and yeah, and then as soon as I came home, I started again. Really weird. But now, like, I don't take the pill or anything, because like I want to know my body, and I want to know my hormones and things, and that emotions that I feel are real and not like distorted by anything.
When you were sharing your story, you said that you don't tell many people, or you haven't told many people. And when I came here today, you said you didn't tell your roommates. Do you think it's something that you will eventually feel like sharing, or you don't want to share at all?
I would really like to share it with people who like have had a similar experience, and I've often thought about trying to like volunteer with a helpline or something, because I think it's so important. Like, that was what I felt when I was going through it, was that it was so important that someone had some empathy, because it's such a personal thing. It depends entirely on your circumstances, what you think is important and not important. I know that lots of people have abortions and they're happy with their decision, and that's fine, and they're confident to take that decision. And I think maybe it's just because I'm such an indecisive person that is always thinking, oh, but this, but that, but I could have done it differently. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel like this? I think there must be lots of people that also feel like that. So I'm not sure I would share it with people who don't need to know. Also, I don't want people to judge me. I think if someone asked me now, I probably wouldn't deny it. But also just because I get so upset about it. If I could talk about it without getting upset, I think I would. But I do, and I'd be happy to talk about it and get upset if it's to help somebody going through the same kind of thing, but not needlessly just because I like talking about it. And sometimes that makes me feel bad as well, because it's because people don't talk about it that it's still hard for people to go through. But I don't know, I don't feel quite ready yet.
Yeah. You have to be ready to tell, to share it with people. And you don't know who the right people are all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, before you started sharing your story, you got very emotional. Why did you think you got that emotional before you started sharing it?
Yeah. I think because I do shut it out so much, and I have done over the last 3 years, because it does upset me. So, yeah, tackling it, talking about it, something that is difficult. I think that's why I get emotional even just thinking about it. I mean, the last couple of days since you said you were coming around, like, even just anticipating talking about it makes me upset. I guess just because it was such an incredibly difficult time. When I think back to how lonely I felt, I think that's the biggest thing. It brings back the emotions of how I felt at that time.
Why do you want to share your story?
I don't know, I think it's really important, because I think it's perceived as something that's very black and white. Like, people have fought really hard for women to have the right to have an abortion, and that's really important. I'm completely behind that. But I think also that doesn't mean that it's a straightforward decision. I think people can be really, I don't know what the word is, simplistic about it. Like, you've got this right, so use it. I think that's how my parents felt. Like, why wouldn't you? But it's really not that simple. Yeah, there are lots of emotions. It's hormone. Like, when you're pregnant, you have different hormones. Like I mentioned about maternal instinct. Like, it's real. It's very, very difficult to take a mental decision that counteracts, like, the kind of natural feelings that you have, and when you question your reasons for doing it. It's really hard, and I know lots more women are having abortions, especially like married women and older women. So I really admire people that can take that decision because it's not right for them. But I think that's partly why it was so hard for me, is because I didn't have a really clear reason for doing it. So I just yeah, I want to share this story amongst many other stories, just to show that it's really not straightforward.
I agree. How do you feel now that you shared your story?
I feel kind of disappointed in myself that I still get so worked up about it. Because I feel like I need to kind of accept it and move on. And I don't think I made the wrong decision. But yeah, I do just wonder if it will always be this difficult to talk about. And I haven't been in a relationship since it happened. Like, I've had casual things with people, like I've seen people for a few months here and there, but I haven't actually been able to find anyone and kind of like feel really comfortable with people. And I feel like it has really affected my ability to, I don't know, I feel like I'm sort of in self-preservation mode because I just can't hurt like that again, ever. So I think it has really damaged my ability to have relationships with people. And that's something I really hope I can like get over when I meet the right person. But yeah, I think that's probably why it still upsets me. Whereas I feel like if I found love, then I think I would be able to come to terms with it a bit more, maybe. I don't know, I'll just have to see if that makes any difference at all. But yeah, like, it's good to share it and I think it's important, and I'm happy to share it if it helps another person who thinks, oh, I really felt like that as well. But personally, I think I've still got a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about processing that experience in some way? Working through it?
No, I don't think I'm very good at tackling problems. I prefer to bury my head in the sand. And because a lot of the time I don't think about it, but then, yeah, times when I'm lonely, I think about it a lot. So I don't know. No, I haven't. But I'm open to suggestions.
I don't know if I have I've met a lot of people who've processed it in very different ways. Some of them have done like rituals. Some of them have done like therapy. Obviously that's like one way people think about talking about it. But a lot of people have done rituals that are very particular to them.
Yeah.
That have some meaning to them. And they're all very different. And some people need more processing than others. Some people don't feel like they need to talk about it or relive it or whatever. And some people really feel like they need to think about it more and find ways to tackle it. And some people just feel like, I don't want it to go away. I want it to be in the space of it, you know? And also like what you were saying about like, oh, I don't want to always feel emotional. I still get emotional every time I talk about my abortion. My feeling is like you'll feel whatever you feel until you don't feel it anymore. Yeah. And so you might feel it for a while or forever. You know. Yeah. You can't say, but there's nothing good or bad about it. It just is. Would it be better to feel nothing? I don't know if that's true. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't beat yourself up about it because we have emotions. And we're going to feel whatever we feel. Things come up.
Yeah, but I do think it's something I should maybe think about because clearly it is still a big issue to me. So I should maybe try and...
And you can do it like in your own way. Yeah. And I think this is like a good step, just like getting the story out.
And also I would just feel so upset if I thought a friend of mine who I hadn't told went through the same thing and felt they couldn't talk to me, I would feel devastated to think someone was going through that and not feeling like they could talk about it. So I do feel like I kind of have a duty to talk about it, but then it's kind of like with who. Some of my friends are a lot more judgmental than others and things, and it's tricky.
This is Melissa, and thanks again for listening. You can continue to listen to our stories online through our website by subscribing on iTunes or SoundCloud or your favorite podcast app. And if you rate and review our podcast on iTunes, it helps new listeners find us by boosting our iTunes ranking. And remember, the Abortion Diary needs your support. Help the Abortion Diary continue its work and share our stories by donating, and consider supporting us with a monthly gift. Thank you to Zoe for hosting me in London, England, so I could record this story. If you'd like to host me in your city or town, please send me a message. I'll be back next week with a new story. New stories are posted every Tuesday. Until then, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Listen for us next week.